Everybody, this is Mr. Golem here, and I want to talk to you about the End of Gatsby. This little instructional video is kind of like a little bit of a lecture to talk about the final passage of the book, maybe give you some ideas about how you might respond to the final passage in the book. Okay, so the first thing to note as we read this wonderful novel is that this is a very colorful book, but with a lot of muted tones. So because the book is written from Nick's perspective, we only really see the greatest experiences of pain secondhand. He only hears about Gatsby's murder or passes by the scene of Myrtle's accident. We only find out about the destruction in the wake of said destruction. So you're not going to get these huge feelings coming from the book as you read. So you have to really look at the subtleties and how things are described to really pull that out. The second thing is there's really colorful descriptions everywhere throughout this book, but like the most horrible things in the book are very colorful. So that pairing between, say, death and the color yellow kind of makes us feel kind of weird. So although the book is very colorful and beautiful, it's often paired with very horrible things. It's really not until the end of the book that Nick is really upset with anything that he's witnessed or been a part of. It's not until he talks to Tom in chapter 9 and finds out that he's the one that told George to go kill Gatsby that you realize Nick is he is upset about what has transpired. So the narrator, even in the book, is really rather complacent and passive and participatory throughout the book. So therefore, you feel kind of weird being against some of the things that are happening. So throughout, again, there's lots of tone and feeling, but you kind of have to seek it out. Okay, so let's take a look at the final passage of the book. I'll read it to you here. Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster, stretch out our arms farther, and one fine morning. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. Okay, so that's the final passage of the book. Sorry about my dramatic reading here. I wanted to show you I'm making my own little pool here to help simulate the final passage of the book, brought to you by Ace Hardware. Anyways, so let's break it down word by word as we know that Nick is kind of looking out on the bay behind his house at the end of the book, thinking about this sort of the green light. And in the paragraph before this, you hear about like the settlers that maybe would have come there many years ago before any of the houses were there, and he's kind of relating their feelings with the feelings of the people of his time, and then later of our time, but you'll see in a second. So green light, important symbol, something that we need to think about. Ask yourself, what does the green light mean as you read this? Could it be a stand-in for Gatsby's goals, or is there something more general you need to be thinking about? The word orgastic, yes, it's related to the word you're thinking of. Another word that's similar is orgasmic, or even a little less similar maybe is extremely exciting. So yeah, our future is orgastic. That year by year recedes us, year by year. It's a time period that we realize is not tomorrow, it's not in an hour, it's not monthly, but year by year. This is a long stretch of time. Recedes, you got to know that kind of, it sneaks away from you. It kind of slowly pulls back, slow enough to where you can't really realize it's moving away from you. So receding is a lot of a slower retreat, okay? Us. So the word us is finally used here. Us means that we have to apply our own selves to this passage. You can't just say it's just Gatsby, but instead us. So now the reader is being invited to apply this image and this metaphor to their own experience. Eluded, that means it hides away, it hides from us, or it escapes our grasp. Then we have these punctuation pieces here. I'm going to highlight all of them. So what we notice here is some interesting shifts in tone. It's real subtle whenever there's these hyphens, or I guess it really is these dashes that sort of separate this passage. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Okay, shift. there's a change in mind. Tomorrow we'll run faster, stretch out our arms farther. We got a little bit of sarcasm right here. It says we can't get to this green light goal, but it's okay. I'll just run faster. I'll just stretch out my arms farther, right? There's actually a bit of sarcasm coming from the narrator here, Nick or maybe Fitzgerald at this point in the book. I think you need to read this with a little bit of a snide tone. He's maybe saying we try a little bit too hard or push ourselves a little bit too hard or too far. And then the last sentence here, and one fine morning, and it's cut off. So what would we fill in here? And one fine morning, what? You'll achieve this goal? Or somebody below you will shoot you in the back and then you'll be dead in the water? I think we should be feeling pretty upset about what he might say instead. Instead, he seems to hold his tongue, the narrator here, and switches on to the next sentence, which is probably the most famous line in the book. If you're going to memorize one line, go ahead and memorize this. So we beat on boats against the current. We beat on. What does it mean to beat on? I'll show you some pictures in a second of these boats trying to make their way over some big waves. Borne back ceaselessly into the past. Borne back means like pushed back, pulled back. Ceaselessly means it never stops. So we get this image of people as boats, kind of just rowing as hard as possible to get over the next wave, but the current keeps pushing them back into the past. And so this brings us to the topic that we started this unit with, nostalgia, the past, right? We have this strong feeling of the past, this warm feeling when we think about these things from our past. And, I think there's some things from our past that are better left there. Others that, of course, I think what a lot of you brought in are great things to bring with you into the future. But, things that we should probably leave in the past, like our relationship with our one-time girlfriend when we were in the military. That's Gatsby, for instance. That probably should have been left in the past. Or our penchant for an America that's a little less diverse. That's something that I would argue that needs to be left in the past. We're in the new time now. We can be diverse and open. But we have some of these things that we kind of dredge out of our past, and we're just kind of tied to them, as it says here, our orgastic future that we want to achieve, but yet we're stuck in the past. Interesting. Okay, so the novel, this is a little quote from an article I found. I linked it here. The novel anticipates the disillusionment and emptiness found in the standard version of the American dream that became prevalent, if not accepted, in a later era. So this book comes out in the late or early 20s and kind of previews this mindset that people have, that they're trying to achieve some American dream, but it's unattainable. And that's why this book kind of sticks around, is because the message of it still kind of echoes into our future. Let me bring it into the current day. I pulled this article off a little Google search about inequality and COVID-19. Researchers have shown that after this pandemic, that people with a basic education are going to have a harder time finding employment. So when they're looking at previous pandemic events, they're finding out that people with more advanced education are less affected by events like this. People with basic education have they have a greater change in employment, a greater negative change in employment. So, where am I going with this? Sometimes events happen in the world that kind of highlight the inequalities that might exist or the differences in opportunity. In Gatsby's case, we have this event of this attempted reunification with a past loved one, but sometimes we have these sort of nationwide events that kind of wake us up to the harsh reality of how things are for a lot of people in our society. Just keep in mind the differences in inequality, but at the same time, I wouldn't look left and right in the classroom and line yourself up against your peers, because really we are all in the same boat here in a big way. I don't think any of us have really experienced what it means to be ultra wealthy like the Buchanans, and that is something that I don't even think any of us are able to comprehend coming from where we are at right now. at our school. So just keep that in mind, and especially if you know somebody was harmed by this pandemic and the changes in their situation, just realize like this is an example of some of these predictions coming to light. Okay, the question that you might ask first is, what are your green lights? So that quote kind of begs us to really consider, what is that goal that people share that may be unattainable, that that's always kind of pushing against us. The first thing I'll say is a kind of a funny thing, keeping my lawn looking tidy and weed free. Yeah, my lawn looks okay, but week to week, day to day, weeds start popping back up, and it's a constant fight against these little creepy crawlies coming all over my lawn. So, that is a goal that no one is judging me for having, but also one that they'll look and say, hey, it's a battle that you're going to lose year to year. That's one example of a green light. Try to give you a lighthearted example. Reliving that 90s feeling by watching all my favorite Disney movies on Disney Plus. Being able to live comfortably on a minimum wage job like my grandparents did. These are goals and hopes that may never come to fruition, and I'll never truly be a child again. I'll never be able to clock in at a minimum wage job and say I can pay my mortgage with that. So these are things, maybe more recent goals that I might have that are probably not worth riding my boat in. The next couple are ones that are probably sad to realize and think about, but life as a multimillionaire growing up with working class parents, that's a dream that you might have, but one that statistically would be very hard to accomplish, right? Becoming a medical doctor having grown up in below average schools. If you don't have access to private schools or a ticket into Yale or Harvard, like, it's going to be tough to be the leading medical doctor. So these are goals that I think some kids think about, and they're told they can achieve them, but they don't know the statistics are stacked against you. The last couple, I think, are big goals and goals worth fighting for, but not goals that will be achieved tomorrow or even next week. Achieving equality of race, gender, citizenship, sexual orientation, etc., or achieving general economic well-being. These are all things I think we keep in mind as a society, something we try to move towards, and we need to keep fighting for these things. But we get upset and we feel like we're being pushed back by all these forces because we don't achieve them on a yearly basis. Even it's very much a year-to-year battle. Okay, so I wanted to give you another slide here. Please don't be sad. This book is so stark in its truth about American society, and I don't think you can truly get this book until you become a little older and start to work for yourself and get out on your own. But these are some seeds I'm trying to plant for you guys, just to think about the last passage of this book. So ask yourself some of these questions. What is your green light? What things do we work so hard to achieve in your own life or in society, knowing that they won't come true? Is dreaming about the goal sometimes better than attaining it? Gatsby probably cried himself to sleep thinking about Daisy, but those moments probably felt just as good as when he was finally holding her hand. So I don't know. Those are a few questions you can ask yourself. And of course, please try to answer these questions in your paragraph that you write this week. I was going to leave you with this little story here. So have you ever been on a boat? The purpose of this is to help you think about what that last metaphor is, okay? Take a look at this boat here. It's kind of riding up the wave. I know it's kind of turning into this classic painting. I wouldn't sail on that wave. But sometimes this is really ultimately the situation I picture depicted at the end of that book. And next slide here. This is from The Perfect Storm. Sometimes we're riding this boat, trying to push into this orgastic future, but our past, this current, is pushing us towards the past, and we can never really get over that wave crest. I want to tell you a story about a movie called The Truman Show. So in this movie, Jim Carrey's character basically finds out that his life has happened on the set of a TV show. Okay, and so his goal ultimately becomes to escape this TV show, and the way out is on this boat. Okay, and so he's been conditioned throughout the show, through his life, to be afraid of sailing and being afraid of the water. So he'll always stay in this one place, never change who he is or where he wants to go in life. But he ultimately tries to fight against these forces and become his own person. So he does try to get on this boat and sail out away from the town that he was raised in, and he basically is pushed to the edge of his life, and he survives. The sun comes out, and he ends up hitting the wall, right? And he actually hits this wall on a TV set there, but he basically gets out of the TV show because he pushes on this boat and he's able to get through the storm. But the thing is the only reason why he can leave is because of the forces that were keeping him there. The director of the show decides to turn off the storm and to turn off the waves and to turn on the sun and say, all right, welcome to the new world, Truman. It's not until the forces acting against Truman led up for him to be able to realize his goal of escaping the show. This is one example where I think it's a kind of this counter to the Gatsby idea of being in this boat, being pushed back by the current. But sometimes these forces pushing us back into the past are not ones of our creation. Like, it is from culture, it is from society, it's from these systemic causes that are keeping us from achieving the goals that we want to attain. So the book Gatsby reminds us and honors and encourages us to have a green light, to have a goal, because that's the thing that made Gatsby great, was the richness of his dream and what he'd go to do it. But we always forget that he died because of it. So it's giving you this, the end of this book really kind of gives you this weird feeling. It makes you ask, should I really go for the gold? Should I try my hardest to get what I want? Or do I need to be more careful? And that's why this book is so complex and so read in every school, because it delivers a hard truth about life and about our life and our goals and our green light. So ask yourself, what is your green light? Are your goals worth attaining and working towards? And what is pushing against you? What's holding you back? All right, ride the wave. Enjoy writing your paragraphs. We'll see them from you. All right. See you later. Adios. Oh, this is cold. Okay. Turn it off.